Welcome back to the podcast. Normally, you have Gabe and I, we're co-hosts on the show, where you have our home team episodes where we have incredible guests come on and share their information. But today, I have the most special guest to me. My wife, Ashley Khalipa, is on the show for us today. And we're going to talk about all things relationship, a little bit of fitness, maybe a little bit of our background, and just share with people, how we met and how we've, in my opinion, grown together since meeting in high school. One of the goals of this show in particular is for me to learn, and I've learned so much from Ashley. And what I'd recommend for any couple to do, or any guy who listens to our show, or maybe a woman, is maybe, sit down together and listen to this particular episode. This one's going to be a little bit more geared towards couples and what we've learned over the last, 25 years. And so definitely listen to it together, listen to it separate, share it with your spouse, and hopefully we instill some type of, lessons learned. I mean, we've been through a lot. We've made a lot of mistakes. And I think a great place to start, Ashley, is in particular, how we met. And what was your first impression of me? Because I imagine it was perfect. Mm-hmm. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't perfect.
Nothing's perfect.
Nothing's perfect. That's a good point. That's a good place to start. Yeah. All right.
We met the first day of freshman year of high school. It was the first class of the first day. Algebra, Mr. Nicoletti. You were sitting a couple seats in front of me to the right. I couldn't see exactly where we were sitting. You would turn around all the time, wave at me.
So I knew I had a hot chick back there.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure, we were young. We're 14, just started high school. I'm pretty sure we started dating, however you want to call it, 2 weeks into school. Yeah. Very, very soon. Yeah. It didn't.
What was it like back then? I don't even remember what dating was like back then.
You asked,
hey, do you want
to be my girlfriend? Oh. I'm pretty sure that's how it goes.
Yeah. And we were chatting on AOL.
Yeah.
Remember that?
AIM.
Yeah.
Messenger.
All right.
Yeah.
So anyways.
Yes. So that's how we met. And obviously we went to the same high school. So we would not only see each other in that class, we would see each other free periods and throughout the day.
So what happened after we met? So we met, we got together. I go home. I tell my mom, I say, hey, Mom, I met the woman of my dreams. I'm going to marry this woman. This is a true story. I get home, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, Mom, I'm going to marry this girl. We ended up dating. Mm-hmm. I thought my, future was going to be bright. And then a couple weeks later, you dumped me.
I did.
Yeah. And what do you think is the learning lesson there?
Well, I think the learning, there's not really a learning. You're young, right? You don't know. You're apparently very in love with me at that point. So all you want to do is make me happy and do everything, be nice to me and this and that and all the things. But I think for me, it was just too much. It was not real. I was like, no one is this nice. And you didn't have really, you would just say yes to anything I wanted, or in conversation, there's no opinion there. And I didn't like that. I was like, you want somebody to be able to have an opinion, not always say yes to everything, at least for me. So it was too much. I was like, oh, he's just too nice. I can't do this. And then I broke up with him.
So she breaks up with me. 2 weeks go by. And then we end up just becoming friends for the next, 9 months, 10 months. And then that summer, we end up getting back together again. We were both 15, I think, at the time.
Yeah.
And we've been together ever since. So I'm 39, she's 38, right?
Yeah.
38, yeah. And so we've been together that entire time. And by the way, as we're going through this conversation and kind of sharing some of our background and lessons we've learned and things like that, we also have Brian in the studio with us. So if he chimes in, asks a question, maybe because we skip over things, because, Ash and I, we obviously, we connect regularly. So sometimes we just assume everybody knows certain things, but they don't. So he could jump in and let us know if we have to clarify things.
Thank you, Jason. Yeah, I'm here when you need me.
So,
yeah, but I think, what the main idea of that whole thing that happened is to be authentic. Be an authentic person, be yourself. Don't try to be somebody else just because you think that's what the other person wants, right? Obviously, that's something you learn over time. And at 14, you probably don't understand that. But that's really the point of it all. You weren't being yourself. You weren't being who you are, because I love who you are, but I didn't get to see that in the beginning. And then I got to see that once we became friends after he stopped being mad at me. Then we became friends and we had a whole year of just getting to know each other on a friend level, and that's it. And I was able to see, oh, you're not what I thought you were, right? And in a good way. So I was able to see your authentic self as we were becoming friends. And I wouldn't change anything about that either, because we were able to create that really good friendship base before then we seriously started dating.
Yeah.
And I think that's always been something really important, and we're really lucky to have that I think each other's best friends. We have been since freshman year of high school.
Yeah.
And we built that friendship before we started dating technically.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's a really good point. And I think we should talk about how our relationship has obviously evolved since, freshman year of high school. High school was, in my opinion, the hardest time for us as a couple. And I think couples either grow together or they kind of grow apart. For us in high school, it was really difficult because Ashley's family at the time, in particular, both of our dads come from Iran. Both of them have similar career paths. It's kind of funny how first day of school, I see you and I don't know what it was, right? But just extremely attracted to you and all things, still am tremendously. And it's but our dads come from the same world. And, growing up, it was tough. Your dad was definitely more strict in terms of being able to go out and go do things. And it put a wedge a little bit in between us. And I think that, talking about that a little bit more, I think is going to be helpful for us because we've seen it all sides. Growing up in high school, we had friends that my parents didn't really, they kind of let me do what I wanted.
Yeah.
Your parents, the complete opposite.
Yeah.
And so it's as parents for us now, we have a almost 14-year-old daughter and an almost 11-year-old son. It's how do we want to get through that stage? But I think that in itself, if you look back on it, is almost a good learning lesson for you and I.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you pick things that work from both sides, right? So I think there's a in between of, I had extremely strict parents. You had you could do whatever you want. We're on two sides of it. I think there's somewhere in between for our kids, right?
Yeah.
I don't think you should let kids do whatever they want and have no rules, but I also don't want to put all the rules on them and not let them do anything and have any freedom, because I also know what happens when that's the case, because that was me. So
yeah,
it's a tricky.
Every time we talk about this, I just think about all the things that could have gone wrong,
Yeah.
And thankfully, not many did, but a lot of things could have gone wrong.
Yeah,
because
we were stupid.
We were stupid. Yeah, really stupid.
As many teenagers.
As many teenagers are. I just think about it all the time now. It's man, looking back on it, just from sneaking and yeah.
Made some bad choices, but we just wanted to see each other.
Yeah, we just wanted to see each other. Fast forwarded, we just wanted to see each other. Yeah. So you go through high school, obviously we had some difficult times there, but I think we still stayed obviously really close. We stayed together the whole time. And then we go to college and, I had dreams of going wherever Ashley went to college. It was really important for me. And that was a really big turning point for me in my life, because at that point, as you know, I wasn't really applying myself in high school.
No.
I was partying a lot.
And the class clown.
Being the class clown, definitely, for sure. You were really smart, still are. You got great grades. And then boom, you finish high school and get accepted into San Clemente University. All of our friends, not all of them, but a lot of them who applied there got accepted. Mm-hmm. And I didn't, right? I got denied. And the worst part about being denied from San Clemente University was that my mom worked there at the time. My mom, my sister, my dad, all three of them went to school there, and I still got denied. It's really bad.
Well, you really didn't try in high school. I mean, at all.
I really didn't try.
You got in trouble all the time.
All the time. Yep. And so, I ended up applying, didn't get in. I went to a junior college, went there for 2 years. I applied, I think 2 more times.
Something like that.
I ended up getting into San Clemente University 3 or 4 times in, and then boom. Ash and I both graduated from the same school at the same time. It was my dream come true. And I really got woken up at West Valley. I feel like I turned a corner. And so I guess, looking at it from your perspective through that evolution, I guess, what did you see happen? Did you see that same thing? Like, hey, this guy who like, I can't believe, honestly, that you stayed with me this whole time. I really can't. I don't know what you saw.
Blinded by love. I don't know.
I don't know what you saw because I was just such a jackass and just wasn't applying myself. So thank you for staying with me.
You're welcome.
Yeah. So anyways, I want to know, Liz had asked me some questions about moving in together without your dad didn't really quite know, whatnot. And then looking back, what reservations now that we have a daughter on our own, like from a parenting perspective, kind of jumping around a little bit, but looking back at high school and then how it evolved into college, we ended up living together and we could talk about some of that stuff. But from a parenting perspective, I think you and I are both on the same page. We're trying not to raise, you said it best, trying not to raise assholes.
Yeah.
It's really important to us, in particular, on both of our kids. And so when you're trying not to raise assholes, you're trying to create these guardrails. How does that relate to going out? Like, and even like with phones and stuff, man, it's been a tough conversation. Like,
it's hard.
It's hard, right?
Yeah. With social media and all that stuff is very difficult. And it's
what do you
just
think
very
we're
different.
doing? What do you think we're doing with the kids that based on our past, like I was able to do anything, you were able to do nothing. What do you think we're doing for our kids? You think is so far working okay? And then what do you think we could probably do to improve? I'm just curious. Like,
I mean, I think our kids know that I'm pretty sure they think we're not like extremely strict. We're pretty open. We talk about everything. We never shut anything down immediately. It's something that say, hey, like if you want to do something or whatever it may be, bring it up to us. We'll have a conversation about it. We don't want to keep you from doing things you want to do. As long as you're safe and you're being honest and you're telling us what you're like, we need to be able to trust you in order for you to have more freedom. Like that is a very big deal. You break the trust. It's really hard to regain that trust again.
Yeah. And so you've been really good about instilling this idea of like trust
and
for this from like early age.
Yeah. And tell us, and we're not going to be mad. We just have to know, and we have to, and then we can go from there and figure it out. Right. But you have to start by being honest. And I mean, that's hard, right? I get it. I know how I was growing up.
You weren't always honest.
But my parents also weren't like that with me.
Yeah,
There was no, they didn't tell me like, I won't ever be mad at you. You could go and I want you to do these things. Go ahead. You could go to parties. I didn't get that. I didn't even get given the opportunity to be honest or to share anything because I knew they just shut it down right away. There's no point in me asking because they would say no, and they already had said no. And so why would I feel like I want to tell them these things when they've already made it clear it's not going to happen?
Yeah. Yeah. And it's really interesting. Ashley brings a unique perspective to our relationship with the kids that I don't have because you were in that situation where you weren't even able to be honest because like
I just would have gotten in trouble. But there's no open dialogue of, well, maybe this can happen. Let's talk about it. Maybe there's some restrictions to it, but we're going to try to make it work so that you could do. There was zero of that. It was just like, yes, no. There was no gray area of.
Dude, I was just thinking,
anything.
Like, as you're bringing this up, I'm just thinking about, remember that time? Like, how many years ago was it? A couple of years ago, I'm sitting with your dad, and I'm like, hey, man, we're like having a beer together, and I was like, hey, Jeff, I know back in the day, like you kind of like said, like, hey, I'm gonna, I want to kill you or whatever. Like on a scale from 1 to 10, like how serious were you? He's like, I was like a 9.9 out of 10. And I just remember looking at him like cheersy, like, oh man, I'm glad that I didn't get killed.
Survived.
I survived high school. Oh man, we survived together. We go through college. I think college was a really good time for us. I think we connected even deeper even deeper. But since then, I feel like we were just so young and still, I don't want to say dumb. We were just so young and immature. And like, I saw these girls this morning. I was with Ava at Phil's Coffee, and they're wearing a Santa Clara University shirt. And I just said to Ava, man, if only those girls knew like how good they have it, like how how the amount of stress in their life, how life will only get harder as more responsibility comes on. And I was just thinking that, and like,
well, of course, but I mean, now you sound like a parent, right? I mean,
yes.
that's what my parents would tell me, and you'd be like, okay, whatever. You don't know what you're talking about. It's like, enjoy this time in your life where you don't have to, like have a full-time job. You don't have kids. You don't have a mortgage. You don't have all of these things that create so much stress in your life. Like, all they have to do is like, they go to school and get to have fun with their friends and do whatever they want. Like, but you're preaching to the choir. They're just not going to get it. Right? And that's part of growing up. You're just,
but it leads into something that you're really big about, which is perspective, which we've talked about a lot. I think this in itself, starts to encapsulate what I think you and I have learned the most out of Ava's leukemia diagnosis, in my opinion, is that, we had some technical difficulties with the podcast a few times. And I remember you and I had just said, like, if the biggest problem we have this week is that we have to re-record a podcast sitting down together and spending a couple hours talking, like, that's a damn good week.
Yeah.
And that comes from perspective. When I was in college, the biggest problem you had, like, that was the biggest problem, because at the time, like, it's all your perspective. Like, you having to turn in a homework assignment, like, that's a big deal, because at the time that was a big deal to you.
Yeah, because I mean, most people at that age have not gone through something life-changing.
Right.
Most people. There are plenty of people that have.
Yeah, there's plenty of people that have.
But for a lot of people at that point in your life, you really haven't gone through super tough things.
Yeah.
To have any different of a perspective of, well, this seems like the hardest thing in the world right now. Whereas like somebody who's been through something is like, it's an assignment, it's a test, it's a whatever. It's not that big of a deal, really, in the scheme of things. But
yeah, but it's all relative, right?
Yeah.
So I think kind of I definitely want to dive into your tattoo and your perspective and Ava getting sick. But maybe before we get there, let's just go there. Let's go there. I think it's a really good thing, I think, for couples to reflect on how their relationship evolves. So like, maybe take us through the way you remember Ava getting sick, and then we could talk about like what it's done for our relationships. I think that's a really important thing to discuss.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know where we want to start on her getting, obviously she got diagnosed with leukemia in 2016. She was 4.5 years old. There was months leading up to that of health issues that I was constantly in the doctor with her over and over for this ear infection going to the next ear, back and forth, and that.
Remember when the doctor said this is the worst ear infection he had ever seen?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I would assume she didn't have that great of an immune system. I don't know. We've been told different things. We've been told there's no way she had it from months before she got diagnosed. Like she would have been way too sick. Like that wouldn't have happened. But to me, it doesn't make sense, because for months before she was getting sick. So, I mean, she was in the doctor's office every week for one thing or another, some kind of infection, but none of the medicine would work. It just kept, and they were so confused and they didn't know what's going on. They just thought she had some chronic like ear issues that, that they just think very singular. They're not thinking of everything that's happening. And, there's also, you think back, you're like, well, maybe I didn't explain every single symptom at each appointment, right? It might've been like this appointment, I'm focusing on the ear infection, but then another appointment, well, she has these bruises, and then another, and then you go back again, your leg pain. And then once the doctor started like hearing all these like additional issues, then something clicked. I think once I said the leg pain with the bruises, like that, I think that is finally what clicked to get the blood work immediately, and that was the night she got diagnosed. But so it was, there was a lot leading up to.
I totally forgot about the ear infection. I just remember the doctor being like, "Hey, I'm just letting you know, this is the worst ear infection I've ever seen." I just thought to myself, I'm like,
that was like one of. It was literally going. She would get one in one ear, and then they give her antibiotics to cure that, and then right after that would heal, the other one would happen, and then at some point the antibiotics weren't working, and they were had to give her antibiotic shots in her thighs,
I don't remember that.
Well, because you weren't there. thighs, and then it just nothing was working. Nothing was. She just kept getting infection after infection, and it was.
Well, it's funny because in hindsight, right, you look back and you're like, oh, well, you had all these different issues. Why didn't you see something? I mean, we try to be proactive about this, and the leg pain, all these issues. But I think one of the reasons why we want to talk about this is to talk about some of the lessons we've learned and some of the things we've done. And so Ava, she has all these things. And then we get a call. We have to go to the Stanford ER, right? And so we arrive at the Stanford ER, and we're very blessed to live where we live, where we have the greatest medical treatment ever.
Yeah.
And we show up to the ER, and they put us in that, isolation room, which didn't give us a good warm and fuzzy feeling. And at that time, like, we didn't even know. Remember, what did they think it was? Like low iron or something? Like, remember, the doctor knew, but he was trying to be cool.
Yeah. He didn't want to scare us.
Yeah. And, we had a nurse, and we've shared this before, but I think it's really important to share again. We had a nurse that night, and this is before Ava was diagnosed, and she gave us some really, really powerful advice that I'd like to talk about, which was to keep our date nights. So this nurse pulls aside. This is before she was diagnosed.
It was like an hour before or something. They were waiting for her blood work to go through.
And this nurse had obviously seen a lot of situations. And so we probably went there like at, I don't know, it was like dinner time, right? So we went there like at 7 p.m. We ended up getting the news like around like 1 a.m.
Something like that.
Yeah. And so this nurse is like verbatim, I've seen a lot of stories come through here. You have to keep your date nights. And then basically left.
Yeah.
But that's the right way. And, looking back on it, she was just trying to do us a favor. But it came off it was very bad timing.
At least wait till we have the diagnosis. Maybe, I don't know. In either case, I don't think we would have enjoyed hearing that at that point.
No, we didn't enjoy hearing that. No. Yeah. But it turns out that advice, and we kept to it, I think was probably, do you think, would you say that was, aside from having like our family support and all the things we're going to talk about, would you say that was the number one thing that like helped us get through? I mean, obviously medical care, there's so many factors here, right? But I mean, that was a big deal, right? We would take time for ourselves. Yeah.
We would sometimes have to force it because we didn't, especially in the beginning. It was really hard to take that time. I was like, I don't want to. I just want to be in this room with her, especially when she was in the hospital for, there was a period in the beginning, it was a month straight when she had the super bad infection. And I didn't want to leave her side. I didn't want to leave the room, but everyone's like, you need to at least like take 5 minutes, go walk outside, get air. Like you need to do something.
Yeah.
And I had to be forced to do it in the beginning. It was hard. I was like, I don't care. I just want to be like, I need to be here. And so to allow yourself to, even if it is a 10-minute break, give yourself that, right?
Well,
go walk out, me and you grab a coffee, go to the cafeteria, anything, just to remove yourself for even a 5-minute period. We had family that lucky enough could sit in there with her if we weren't in that room, but it was hard.
It was hard. And keep in mind, so for those unfamiliar with, and I hope you are, the way leukemia diagnosis work is in young children, it's a 2.5-year treatment plan. For boys, it's 3 years. This was like, as of X amount of years ago, some of the technology's gotten a little bit better, right? Yeah, but in general,
it's about the same. Then.
Yeah. And this is something that Ashley and I have dedicated our lives in some way to, which is helping families. Ashley in particular she runs a annual fundraiser called Ava's Kitchen, which we'll dive into here in a little bit. But, on that note, okay, so I remember specifically the 2.5 years is a long time. And we were in and out of the hospital for a month, a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. And I would always be there with you. And I'm very grateful that we had the team around us at the business, that we had our family, and that I was able to park my truck out there with all of our fitness gear to stay, energized. But I remember one year, this podcast is being released on Valentine's Day, 2025. We celebrated Valentine's Day in the hospital together. Do you remember that?
Was that first? Yeah, it was when she was she got admitted.
Oh, you're right.
She got admitted mid, like January 20th or 21st. And then she, obviously they start chemo and all of that right away. And then usually after like a week or two, depending on the kid and situation, they get released to go home, which she did. After I think 2 weeks, they're like, okay, you have to come in for your chemo and things like that, but you could go and be at home. So she came home, but she was home for like maybe 5-6 days. And then she started having this really bad pain in her stomach. And she was just like, she would just pass out on the couch. And I was like, there's something not right. She was just, her stomach hurt. And she was just like, my stomach hurts. So we finally were like, we gotta take her in. There's something wrong. So then we took her in and then I think I don't know if she had a fever. There was something, I think she was neutropenic. Yeah. Something dropped where they're like, okay, we don't know what's wrong, but there's something off, right? Because obviously it was a really bad infection. So that's why her numbers had dropped. She had no immunity. And so like, okay, we got to keep her and just see for observation. And then it took them like a day, I think, to figure it out. And then once they figured it out, it was very quickly turning into.
Was that the typhlitis?
That was the typhlitis. No, that was the typhlitis. It was
it was bad.
And then it was an immediate of like, oh, this is like very, very bad. And then she went down real quick. And then that's when they had a.
Yeah, that one was heavy. So wait, but
so we were in there
about the date night stuff.
Yes. Well, I'm going into typhlitis. Well, it's fine because it's all part of it. She went in for that. She pretty much almost coded.
Well, no, we should bring that up because I think I want to get back to the date nights, but this is important because we were in there and couples need to prioritize their conversations and date. And when you have kids, it's easy to just be all encompassed with the kids. You're taking them to sports. You're doing this. You're doing that. But, Ash and I, since day one, we've said our relationship has to be number one. And at least from my perspective, like we burned the boats when we got married. Like there is no plan B. I'm in this for life with Ashley, period. And nothing is more important than maintaining my relationship with her and hopefully the same way. And so if our relationship isn't tight, how can we show up best for the kids? And the reason why I bring that up is that like, even for us in this very difficult time, we still had to prioritize getting out and doing something on our own to make sure we were still connecting and having other conversations and just being in the hospital room. And so people listening, like if you're a couple and you have not gone out and like connected as two people without your kids around for months and months, I mean, dude, take your lady out for a glass of wine, go do something because you have to connect as dating again. And that's why I'm bringing this up because we spent Valentine's Day. I'll never forget that, right? Like we had like brie and crackers or whatever it was.
We walked we had one of our parents come and stay with her in the hospital. She had been at that point moved into just like regular, like she was out of the ICU. So I think we felt okay. Actually, like, it was after she got out of the ICU. Oh. We would not have done it if she was in the No, it was after. So she got out of the ICU. Because she got like admitted February 8th or something. It happened on my time off. I just saw it the other day.
Oh gosh.
But yeah, so she had gotten out of the ICU and she was stable and she was, recovering in a regular room. So we felt okay to at that point have one of our parents come sit with her. We walked to Stanford Shopping Center. They have a little market there. We got like a bottle of wine, some cheese and crackers, and like a big thing of honey, and we just went and sat in the.
I think I have a picture.
The little I have a picture of our little like sad cheese plate we made in the hospital.
Sad. It was so sad.
And we like snuck the wine because you're not allowed to have any wine. We had like little plastic cups of our little wine, we just sat there in the little parent area and just had that. But
it's a really good example. Like right before this, we had a really difficult situation and Ava coded and like 20, 30 of these people came into the room. It was super scary. And I would never hope for anybody listening to have their child have to go through that and for them to have to go through it with their child ever. It was the most beautiful expression of teamwork I've ever seen. It's a huge shout out to all the doctors who are out there saving lives and making an impact. But I also think that was the beginning of the journey that then taught Ash and I a lot about this idea of perspective. Because to me, that moment, there's a few moments in time across this whole leukemia treatment that stand out to me. that was one of the biggest ones that whenever life is hard for me today, I think back about that day and I remember like, dude, any problem we could solve with money isn't really a problem and everything else is going to be okay. Like compared to that, right? Like,
of course, yeah.
Because that perspective just skewed me forever. And we were fortunate, I don't know if fortunate is the right word, but we were, whatever, that we had that experience at a pretty young age.
Yeah. I mean, I'd prefer to not have that experience.
Yeah.
So I would have been fine without it.
Not fortunate, but like, you know, but to be able to have that perspective. And so I guess to kind of like summarize what I want to talk about with, you know, date nights in this perspective is you want to get a tattoo and you want to say perspective. And it's literally because of that, what we're talking about right now.
Yeah. It's just going to be here on my arm. I haven't got it yet. I'm going to find somebody to do it. I just have to
maybe someone listening to this podcast right now could give Ashley her first ever tattoo that says perspective in like script.
In script, and I want the bottom of the P to be a cancer ribbon.
Yeah. And I think you're bringing up a really good point. And I would just encourage everyone to just think about that is like, our problems aren't bigger, different. Like everybody has like the worst thing happening to them. Mm-hmm. But if you take a deep breath and if you think about it for longer, like chances are like someone has it worse. Someone's going through worse.
There's always somebody that has it worse.
And I think having that on your wrist is going to be a really good reminder of that.
Yeah. And I think it's also, it reminds you too, when you're talking to people and they're going through something, a lot of times they actually will say stuff to me like, oh, this is probably not like what you went through, what you've gone through has been so much more than what I'm talking about. And they almost feel bad for sharing that with me. And I'm like, first of all, you're my friend. And second of all, what I went through and what we went through is not bigger than what you're going through, because to you what you're going through right now is that big of a deal to you.
It's not a competition.
It's not a competition. It's not like this is a bigger deal. That's not, it's all the same. It's all relative. And so I always remember that when, you know, people might be going through something that to me in my mind, I'm like, okay, it's really not that big of a deal, but I have to remind myself, well, it is to them. And they didn't have an experience like we have, thankfully. And it doesn't mean that one is, you know, a bigger deal than another, because it is to each their own. It's what they're going through at that time. And you have to be sensitive to, you know, to what others are going through, and whether you think yours was a bigger deal or not, it's really not. It's, you know, so I have to remind myself of that too,
and sharing that with the kids. And like, honestly, the kids will start freaking out over whatever. And I have to remind myself, like, they're kids.
They're kids.
Yeah. It'll be okay. You know, I did some, anyways, we'll get into the fitness thing. I think, you know, cause with us, we've kind of embodied this with the kids about like sweating once a day and doing hard things. And I think a lot of that comes from our background, at least mine. I'll speak from my experience. Like I want our kids to be exposed to hard things. And I think kids and adults need to be exposed to hard things because it makes life easier. Like in my opinion, right? If you hit the workout hard, you overcome adversity, it allows you to like, I think, take on the day better. And we try and instill that in our children as well in different ways, right? But I'm curious, like one of the things that you and I were talking about the other day is that you look at fitness so much different than me. And, you know, you got to remember for everyone listening, like we met at 15, 14, and we've been together ever since. So like you've been across the full journey of me from competing professionally in CrossFit to, you know, owning gyms to whatnot. And over the years, we haven't always, I would say, aligned on the fitness thing. And I think there's a lot of things that I could have done better as a husband. So I just want to dive into that, like your perspective on fitness, my perspective, and how we've now gotten to a place where I think it's really healthy, really good. And frankly, what you do with the women in the morning, I've said this before, is like my favorite thing ever. Like I come home from dropping off the kids, or maybe I just come home and I see a group of women just hitting it hella hard in the garage. I'm just like, fuck, like, yeah.
Yeah.
So it gets me amped. You guys always love it when I give you guys coaching advice too.
Oh, yeah,
so that's really
love it so much. Kick you out all the time.
Right. They kick me out all the time.
He's always coming in. Like, you know, we usually chat a little bit before we actually start. So we'll chat before, we'll chat after, and then we do, you know, actually work out in between. But, you know, we'll be warming up or something, and he's walking into the gym. It's like, hey, if you guys tried this, have you tried this new machine? Have you tried this? I got this. And I'm like, please leave us alone. Just go. We'll try it if we want to. Don't tell us
It's
what
like
to do.
earlier I
Go
said
away.
about the barbershop. When we were at the barbershop and a woman walked in, all the guys would just shut up.
Yeah.
Oh,
Right?
So
You just don't. You
shop.
Yeah, you just
Yeah,
don't
like,
belong,
you're in,
dude. It's
like-
not your space.
Yeah, it's not your
It's
space.
not my space.
No.
Wow. Now that you
And
put
we
it
don't like
that,
you trying to tell us what to do.
well, of course you don't like. Yeah.
I mean, at least I don't. I
yeah.
don't think they care as much, but I don't.
You know, I went in there the other day. I'm like, hey, I got this new machine, and all the women
There's
just look at me.
always a new machine. There's always a new something in there.
Yeah. So talk to me about fitness, because, you know, if you go back in time, obviously there was a long time that I was, you know, traveling every weekend for work, teaching seminars, doing this, doing that. And I think I did a poor job of maybe subconsciously putting pressure on you to, and maybe it was just the people we were also surrounded with. It was like my echo chamber at the time.
Of course it was.
Yeah.
You're only surrounded by fit CrossFit people nonstop, every day, all day long. That's all you're seeing, right? You're just around fit people. You're not around people like me.
No, you're
around me, but
People like all of us, Ashley.
yeah, I mean, like most of us. So, I mean, we met in high school. You didn't work. I don't think you worked out unless you were working out for sports.
Yeah, for football.
right? But working out was not something that you like grew up doing or anything like that. You did sports and that's it. But you were very different, right? So
Yeah.
when I first met you, you were not about working out. You were about going to parties and getting wild.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there's that. And then you go into college where then you matured more and you got a serious job and it was at a gym. And so then that rubbed off on you and you met people there. And then that's how you started to get into fitness. And then that slowly changed, obviously, that you were working out every day. Then you got into CrossFit. Then you got into the CrossFit games and then that obviously took off from there. But you weren't like that when I met you, but we were so young. You went to college. I've seen the evolution of your fitness too. So it's not like you were always this crazy fitness guy.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, now, I imagine that relates to a lot of people listening too, right? Like people evolve, right? Like
you evolve.
Well, you should actually. If you're the exact same person you were when you were 15, you're probably not. That's probably not good.
No, well, no, of course.
Yeah.
But like, I mean, in high school, I had never worked out in my entire life.
And you still look damn
until like senior year. It was a PE class that it was learning all these different like movements I've never done in my life. And I was like, wow, this is really hard. Like I probably, maybe should have been working out. But then in college is when you were at the gym. So then again, like to go see you, then I would go and I would work out. And that's how I started pretty much working out in college. It was the first time I'd really ever worked out because I didn't play, in middle school, I played middle school sports, but I did not play any competitive sports in high school. I didn't play. I just wasn't good enough for anything. So I wasn't doing sports. So I wasn't working out there either. So really it wasn't until college I became more of an adult and I was like, I need to work out. Like I need to start getting into this because I need to be healthy. And I was starting to, at that point, not feel great about myself. And so it worked out well because you were working at a gym. So I just would go see you every day and work out and then hang out with you after.
Yeah.
And so there was that. And then your evolution of, doing, once you got to the CrossFit Games and you got into that world, that was a whole other world. That was
every weekend, seminars,
intense.
Competing year round. Yeah, it was pretty intense for a long time.
So that was a lot. I think that's when you kind of really shifted on what you thought, I don't know, like a woman in general should look like, but at least for me, I think you were around all of that. And so you wanted me to be like that at that time. And that was hard. That was there was years. It was really hard. Of course, I also had kids, started having kids and your body changes and all of those things. And like you had a hard time with me being pregnant. You didn't love that. And that was hard, when it's not, my body was changing a lot, and to have your partner feel like they don't necessarily like that change, that was a really difficult time for me.
Yeah.
And then even after that, I still would feel like I was being judged by you or this or that. And we had a lot of hard conversations and a lot of tears were shed on my side over the years. But I think as we've gotten older, you matured, obviously, and you shifted your view of it. Everyone is not built the same. Everyone does not have the same goals. And for me, fitness was not the most important thing to me.
Yeah.
Fitness was something that I'm going to do because I feel like I need to be healthy, but I'm not doing it to be like the fittest person I could possibly be. That just is not my goal in life.
Yeah, well, and I think it comes down to communication. Like there was a time, you're right, because you're in your own echo chamber. And I think a lot of guys can probably relate to this. Like you're in your own world and you want your spouse to exercise more. And I think sometimes you push too much and it pushes them away. Like what I'm learning more and more and more, especially with the 14-year-old daughter, is like the more you push, the more they pull away.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that I had to learn that over time. And now I think we're at a really good place with it. And you found what you need to do. And I found what I need to do, right?
Yeah.
Like, because fitness for me is like an outlet. I mean, I love it and I do it every day, like religiously, right? Mm-hmm. But for you, it serves a different purpose. And I had to realize that. It just took me a long time. I think my advice to any guy listening is like, try and listen more and put your perspective, like listen more and recognize that like the way you feel, okay, I get it, but it doesn't mean you're right. Like, if that makes sense.
No, and it's just going to make your partner feel bad, for the most part, and go the opposite way of what you want. Like it's not going to work well. And if it does, it will be a very short period of time. And then it's just not a long-term thing.
Yeah.
For me, it just, sure, maybe you saying those things, I was like, okay, I need to try really hard. And yes, I would do all these things and I'd try really hard to look a certain way or do whatever it may be. And then I was sick of it. I was done with it. I didn't want to do it anymore.
Yeah.
Like, because it wasn't internal. It wasn't coming from me. It was coming from somebody else. You can't do something for somebody else. You have to do it for yourself. And I knew that, but yet I was still trying to do it for you. And I kept failing at it. It would go good for a while and then I'd fail at it because it wasn't.
So what do you think changed there? Because I agree with you. You have to do it for yourself.
Well, I think what changed was you at some point finally, because I kept.
And we're talking about years, like years ago.
Kept saying
years ago.
Yes, yeah. But I kept saying like I can't. I think I eventually said I cannot do this for you. I need to want to do it for myself.
Yeah, and then I let off.
And I need you to just stop.
Yeah.
Like stop saying stuff. Don't comment on things. It makes me feel bad and it makes me not do that and do, be even worse with the working out and all of those things. And so I think it took me feeling like you actually were supporting whatever decision I made. Like I needed to know that you were going to be okay whether I didn't work out at all or if I worked out every single day. But I needed to actually feel that.
Right.
And not you just saying it. I needed to actually feel that you truly didn't care, which took you a very, very long time to get to that point of you actually being okay with me.
Yeah. Now that I don't care, now you do it.
Yes.
Yeah.
But that's what it took.
Yeah. Isn't that crazy though? Like
I needed to feel like you were going to accept me for however I looked, because I didn't ever we're aging, we're getting older, things change. Like I don't want to feel like if I gain a couple pounds or if my hair, things, I get wrinkles, whatever that, what is it all about appearance to you? Right. And that starts to, if it's about appearance, well,
those things
you're
change.
gonna,
I mean, for the record, you're like a bottle of fine wine. You've gotten nothing but hotter as the days have gone on.
Eventually that wine goes bad.
Oh, baby, your wine is not going bad. So I'm just saying, I mean, but no, I think it's a good takeaway for a lot of the guys, right? Like if you push too much, you're going to go the opposite direction, that they need to make it on their terms. So like, what would the advice be for a guy listening who maybe was in the category that I was in? Like, how do you think I could have approached it better? Listen earlier. And I mean, it's hard because you can't tell somebody don't think that way. Right.
Like if you think a certain thing is attractive, I don't know how that really shifts. I don't know. maturity, maybe, but at a certain point, there might be people that they are attracted to something. And if your spouse completely goes off the deep end and the complete opposite, you can't help but what you're attracted to,
it comes back down to communication, though, right? If I had been more communicative, if I had been listening more, it probably would have been an easier conversation earlier on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we all get a lot of pressure from life and around us, and everywhere we turn, there's a lot of pressure on us to look a certain way and fit into society in a certain way. And I'm guessing, because I'm a little older than you kind of probably grew out of a little bit of your own desire to be a certain look for everybody else.
Yeah. You got to do it. Yeah, exactly. I mean, for me, like, I train hard because I show up the best I can for Ashley and for my family. That's for me. Like, you and I were talking about it, like, this morning. I'm in the garage every day, every single day. And I think that, I talked about this last time we were on a show together, Ashley, but like, I think sometimes people think that, like, I'll say things like every day I do this. And I think they think it's like a figure of speech. It's not a figure of speech for me. It's every day.
Every day. But you need that. And
I need it.
I need you to do that.
And this is where I think it's a really interesting point. We were talking about the men's club recently. So as a lot of you guys know, I host a weekly men's club meetup in a parking lot where we invite guys to come and train hard for free. We've been doing this for 18 months, almost 2 years now. And you've been nothing but supportive of me on that journey. You've been nothing but supportive of me forever, like always. And I think it really is a testament to having a great, person by your side to do life with, because life is going to be hard. Like, that's the expectation. And you've been nothing but supportive across everything for me. And I'm forever grateful for that. But when it comes to like the men's club, I don't think you've never once said to me, "Oh, you probably shouldn't go." You've never
host
told
it, so you can't just.
Well, I host it, yeah. But you've never said to me, like, "Don't go work out," ever. I don't think you've ever said it to me. And there was a time where maybe I was a little bit over too much. Like,
yeah, when you were competing.
When I was competing.
I still never told you no.
I know.
I might have been not so nice to you.
Yeah, you weren't nice to me sometimes. But like, how is that mindset imparted in you? Like, how do you think you got in that place? Is it just accepting the fact that that for me, I need to do those things to be the guy that you want me to be? Is that, or do you just like, you don't care? Like, you don't like.
I mean, I think a mixture, I guess. It's one, you're not doing anything that's bad for you, right? You're doing something positive. So if you want to go work out every day, why would I say no to that when you're trying to do something for your mental health and to feel good and to be a better person when you come back in that door? And I see the difference that it makes from you going and working out and coming back a different person. Like, it's good for our kids. It's good for me. You have a better positive mindset when you come back in. So why would I not want your mental health to be better?
Yeah.
Like, sometimes it's annoying where you decide I'm going to work out right before we're supposed to leave on a trip and I'm packing the car and I'm doing all the things. Yes, I get annoyed sometimes, but I could also be like, hey, maybe work out at a different time.
Yeah.
Do it earlier. Do it not right this second.
You tell me we're leaving. If you want to leave at 3, you'll tell me 2:30, won't you now? You actually tell me at the wrong time, don't you now? I think I'm on you.
I have to. It's like I say it all the time. I was like, why am I the one packing up the cart every single time?
No, not every time.
Every single time.
No.
Yeah.
So we were talking about this the other day, is that someone asked the question, like, what pet peeves what things frustrate you about me? Probably that is one of them.
We're always late. We're always late because of you. I'm always waiting on you.
Always a strong
Ask
word.
our children.
Always a strong term.
Always. If you are on a trip or you're not home or whatever, and I'm going somewhere with the kids by myself, I am never late.
Okay. And then the spoons around. You know what's so funny? I was thinking of you today. I was making breakfast and
it's not just the spoons, it's everything. The spatulas, the pan, there's just crap all over the place that you just leave. As if there's a magical fairy that's going to go clean it up.
No.
And which there is, it's me.
I've shared this with you before. It's because I want to reuse the spoon.
Oh my God, that's such a bad excuse.
And so today,
it's just like when people say, "Oh, well, you do it so much better, so could you do it?" Because you do it so great.
But this morning I'm making sausage with eggs, and I'm making it, and I make it just the way that you hate. And I'm just thinking to myself, dude, if Ashley was here right now, she'd be just disgusted because like you don't like the way I make food. No. I never really cook.
Well, there's not much you make. You pretty much eggs is your.
That's my highest level of cooking.
It's really where you go.
And you've been able to, you've dealt with a lot over the years. Right before we got married, I almost died. That's a strong term. I passed out at the CrossFit.
You looked like you were dying.
It looked like I was dying.
But you didn't.
Yeah, that was a strong term. Okay, yeah, I apologize. And it was 2009 CrossFit Games. I had won the 2008 CrossFit Games, and I ended up, we were on like this 10-mile hill run or whatever, 7-mile hill run. I'm exaggerating a lot today. And I black out. And it took me some time to look at it through your lens. But Liz and I were actually talking about this, that like a week later, we were scheduled to get married.
Well, we did.
Or we got married. Yeah. And then you are watching your man just black out and fall on the concrete. And then fast forward, right? We get married, all's good. And then we open up gyms and all this kind of stuff. And then I'm in the burpee bar chaser at the Home Depot Center. Remember that one?
Mm-hmm.
And then fast forward. And then you have the Camp Pendleton triathlon. And I'm like up all night, like shivering. And Ashley's there consoling me. And like, dude, you've just been there all the time. And I don't know how you do it because I could only imagine the amount of stress you're under. And we talked a little bit about this, about falling in 2009. I actually think 2010 was worse. Do you remember that year I had to be like carted off the tennis stadium?
Yes, you literally couldn't move.
I couldn't move.
They just after the competition,
no one knows
they just left you there on the side laying there. And I was like, well, I had to go fight. So I was like, could somebody go get my husband off the floor?
No one's talked about this. Like people know about the 2009 CrossFit Games, but they don't know about the 2010, the burpee bar chaser one that like, if you watch this Amanda workout from back in the day, they don't know that no one came to get me.
No,
I was in the car.
I had to go find some worker to go get a cart to
remember
somehow
Andy,
get you
Andy
on it.
Came over and threw me on the back of a cart.
Yeah.
Oh,
and we
man.
drove the cart to our car.
So over the years, right, that and then competing for Team USA, competing at the games, all this stuff, opening up gyms. There was a while where I was in Asia like once a month, and you have always been supportive. And I'm just wondering what the takeaways are there, and what do you think I could have done better, and how do you think we communicated well at that time, and how do you think we've matured, right? Because you got to figure we meet at 15, and here we are now. Maybe I'll back up for a minute, but talking about the CrossFit Games season, of my life, right? 10 years. I feel like every year you and I made the decision together. You made it sound like it was only the last couple of years, but what do you think I could have done better during that time? Because I felt like I tried to communicate. I just had a lot of different priorities, and that was hard.
Yeah, you just weren't very present a lot of the time, especially, we had Ava, small child, we had a baby, then we had Kaden 3 years later, but your mind was always somewhere else.
Yeah.
Or you were somewhere else.
Yeah.
So when you were with us, all you were doing is thinking about the training or the game or whatever. You were not very present.
Yeah.
And you know that.
Yeah.
And that was hard, right? So it's either you're actually not present physically or you're not present mentally.
Yeah.
With us. So that was difficult.
Yeah.
That was many years of that.
Many years. For quite a few years for those, we were opening up locations with Western Digital. We were competing. It was a lot. And I wrote a book about it called As Many Reps as Possible. And I said that we were blessed in many ways to embody this mindset of being present and focused, and something I really worked on. And I have been working on ever since, because when Ava did get sick, having that financial hedge, having that fitness hedge, having those relationships with our family, because we're so present with that, I think was a really big blessing for us. And I would encourage anybody listening, you never know when life is going to come and kick you in the nuts. So what's in your control is date nights with your wife, having good relationships with your family, working hella hard so that you can make money and have a hedge. I think all those things people should be doing right now. Like we're going to Napa next week. I'm breaking my alcohol fast in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
I can't wait to wine taste with you.
I get drunk real quick.
Yeah, you got a cheap date, honey.
2 glasses of wine, you're gonna be done.
What one glass of wine, and so, anyways, I want to kind of talk about how our relationship has evolved. In your opinion, like, what do you think we've done over the last 25 years to get to where we're at today? Because I feel like our relationship is really strong. I feel like we communicate well. Obviously, we're not perfect. We're not perfect parents. We're striving to raise resilient, awesome kids. I really want to do that. What do you think we've done along that journey to grow together? Because not many people, I think that doesn't happen for everybody.
No. I think obviously you said communication, but compromise.
Compromise.
You need to communicate, but you also there's a lot of compromises you have to make in a marriage all the time. Like, and eventually you kind of, I've realized you kind of at some point mold into each other with a lot of things. So things that you didn't like that I did, you like
scary movies.
It goes one way or the other. It's either like
Ashley likes scary movies, and I used to like
scary movies, and you hated them, and I molded into now like I hate them, right? And it was natural. It's not like you told me you can't do this. It's just
country music and Pitbull.
Country music, I hated it. You loved it. Now I love it. It's
and
just
Pitbull,
like you
like it, and now I'm on the.
Everybody should like Pitbull.
What are the fans of Pitbull called?
The fans of
Pitbull? Like does he have like a Pitbull army or something like that?
Well, I don't know if they have a name, but people like put the bald caps on to like look like him.
Ashley's been in his show 5 times.
Yeah, and I'll keep going.
If anyone listening is a fan of Pitbull and has connections with Pitbull, please let us know. But anyways, back to compromise. Sorry to get distracted.
But anyways, so like there will be things naturally that you'll start to have the same vision on, like, and you'll just naturally do that. But there's the bigger things in life that you need to talk about. When something's bothering you, you need like really talking to your partner about what you want and what you need. It sounds simple, but a lot of people don't do it, or they're afraid to do it because they think the other person's going to get mad if they say, I don't like this, or I need this and I'm not getting this. But you have to have those, or else you're never going to get what you want or what you need.
Yeah.
And then you will become resentful. And we know where that goes. If it's just not a good road you want to go down, becoming resentful of your partner because they're not giving you what you need or what you want, and vice versa. Right. And so with that, though, are really hard conversations that are not always pleasant. And sometimes you have to have them over and over and over again.
Yeah.
Like we have the same conversation about the love languages over like every couple months. It comes right back of the same conversation, but yet
you're right.
You know what the person wants. You get it, but yet you can't do. It's really hard to do it because it's not the same thing you want. But the goal of eventually you keep talking about it over and over. You start getting a little better at it, and a little better at it, and it will. It might not ever be perfect, and it's not going to be 100%. You're doing what I want all the time. I'm not doing that, but we know we're trying and we're thinking about it, and we're trying our best to do it, and hopefully we keep improving with that. But there's no way for us to know unless we sit down and talk about things that aren't always fun.
Yeah. And
say, hey, what could we do? What can I do to make this better? And they could be little things, they could be big things, but talking about it and compromising over, there's things you're going to have to compromise on that you have to decide, hey, my relationship, whatever, it's more important than this one thing that I'm like stuck on. I'm going to have to let that go. I'm going to let that go, compromise, and you hope that your partner does the same thing for you.
Yeah. It's funny. I haven't thought about it until you said it like this. It's like country music. So earlier on, like 10 years ago, I started getting into country music. Not like crazy, but whatever. And I started introducing it to you like in the car. And you're like, dude, turn this off. Like, let's put on something else, right? And then a little bit wild, same thing, same thing. And then a couple of years ago, you started, I don't know what we were doing. You're like, oh yeah, that's this artist. And I'm like, wait, what, Ashley? And you were secretly listening to it when I wasn't paying attention, right? You were secretly listening to country. And it's the same thing about these love languages and about what you're talking about. I think there's a lot of carryover there, is that you start by opening up the dialogue and the conversation, and then you continue to revisit it. So you and I both know, like, I have like this one love language of physical touch. You like acts of service. knowing that about your spouse or your partner is super important because at least you know what they want. And chances are what they want is the complete opposite of what you want.
Mm-hmm.
So it's hard for you to do that. The way Ash and I have gotten better at this, and we are by no means perfect, is that the date nights and setting up regular time away from the house, like a night here, a night there, has been really valuable for us. And something I didn't know, and men, you got to listen to this. Women are different than men. Like you gotta
you didn't know that?
I just found that out. And women are so much different than men, and men are different than women. And you have to learn how to connect with them on their level. Like if you and I are like, if I think like, oh, the kids are out of town or the kids are somewhere, you and I have a date night. I'm thinking like, dude, it's all right. Like, for you, it's not like that because you're still at home. Your brain's still running. Like, but as soon as we go an hour down the road, and we stay at a hotel, it's like you're disconnected from the energy of the house of feeling like you have to do stuff.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden you're free. And that freedom allows for really good conversation, intimacy, whatever. Like, but I didn't learn that until like a few weeks ago. So I'm just like, maybe not a few weeks ago, you know what I mean? But you get what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So I think for all the guys out there, you gotta, can you summarize that takeaway? Because I think that's really important. Like what you and I have been talking about with like the Napa trip or Half Moon Bay or wherever else we're going.
Find out what your spouse needs and wants.
Ooh.
Like it's simple. It's not that simple. It sounds simple, but it's really like ask them, talk about it. Try to do those things, right? Like do your best to do maybe one small thing a day or, whatever that may be, but just try.
Yeah. Try
your best. So they at least know you're thinking of them and you want to do those things for them and you want to give them all the things they want. It's probably not going to happen completely, but at least you're thinking of them.
Yeah. I feel like, obviously you and I, we could talk for a long time. I do want to talk about Ava's Kitchen and what you've been doing, because like, I think that at times, especially people who listen to this podcast, they have a background of some of the stuff that I've done, and none of it would have been possible without Ashley. We have a great team at NC Fit and also at Train Hard, and I've been very, very blessed. But finding the right person, taking your time, I guess we didn't take that long because we were in high school, but finding the right person, communicating well with them, doing the things you're talking about, and just being real about your relationship, like, this is the most important relationship that I have, and it has to be rock solid, and I'll do anything for this. And in return, Ashley has been able to unlock the potential in me that I feel like I'm not even scratching the surface yet. You know what I'm saying? Like, how many times do I tell you that? Like, I tell you that all the time, all the time. Too much. I'm like, Ashley, like, I'm always looking to her for advice and guidance. And you have to find that person that when all your gyms get shut down during COVID, she's there. When something hard is there, she's there. When life is fucking awesome, she's there. And you're doing life together. Find that person and then do everything you can. So, Ashley, Ava's Kitchen. The work you've done with Ava's Kitchen has been nothing more than remarkable. You've raised close to $4 million at this point. Ava's Kitchen for 2025, so when this is being released, is sold out. It's March 22nd here in the Bay Area. People can still go on and donate and whatnot. But I think what's really important is like you got dedicated to a mission early on in 2016, and you've been consistent with that mission ever since. Can you tell us a little bit more about Ava's Kitchen? And then I guess if people want to, like, can they get on an email list or? Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah, on the website. But
on the website.
Yeah. So Ava got sick in 2016. I had never really felt that I had, I wasn't sure. I knew I wanted to do something, but I never felt connected to anything. Right. And then she got sick. And finally, being in the hospital, seeing the sick family, seeing the sick kids, I was like, I want to do something to help these families that don't have the means that we have. Like, there has to be something here that I could do, and I want to have a charity event, but I didn't know what it was. I've always been into cooking. My kids have always cooked with me in the kitchen. When Ava got sick, I switched to very clean type recipes to get rid of sugars and different things that cancer thrives on.
Remember that guy who messaged me? He's like, hey, don't worry about chemo. You need 10,000 milligrams of vitamin C every day and it'll all be good.
Yeah.
Anyways, all right, keep going.
So, I got into, I made an Ava's Kitchen Instagram that was healthy recipes to share with people, whoever wanted, whether they're going through cancer or not, just sharing what I do in the kitchen every day for my family.
Yep.
So that's where the Ava's Kitchen name came from. She was in the kitchen with me and I called it Ava's Kitchen. A couple months in, I knew I wanted to do something food related for whatever this charity event that I was going to do. I knew I wanted it to be surrounded by food because food is an important thing in our family. Our kids are really big foodies. They like to cook, all of those things. It just made sense. My dad, one of his best friends is Chef Michael Mina. And so I just set up a call with him just to talk it out, say, hey, what do you think? Would you be interested in doing something with me, helping me with this? What ideas you have? We came up with this idea of 4 celebrity chefs, of him being one of them. Every year he gets new chefs. They do chef demos live on stage at this, at a charity event where people are seated. They're watching the live demos happen. Then they get served that dish from that chef and then wine pair, like a whole really kind of high-end charity event, small but high-end. He, at that time, had a restaurant at Levi Stadium. It worked out well. It was all kind of just very natural of, hey, I have the space. Let's do it here. I'm going to donate all the food. It came together pretty easily thanks to him.
Yeah, I mean, in hindsight, looking back on that, I feel like there was definitely like God was looking out for like someone wanted to make all this put together. Like between Nigu and Michael Mina and then you, it all kind of fell in place. You know?
Did, yeah. So that next year, 2017, was it was a little over a year after Ava first got diagnosed is when we had the first Ava's Kitchen, and we had got connected to Eric Reese from the Jesse Reese Foundation a couple months into Ava's treatment, and we connected with them. His daughter passed away from brain cancer, so they, their mission in life was to help kids fighting cancer and bring joy to their lives, and so that connected so well with us because that we felt the same way. Mm-hmm. Thankfully, our daughter was okay.
Yeah.
They weren't as lucky, but they followed what their daughter wanted before she passed. And that was, joy jars in the hospital to these kids and creating memories, for families that may not have the memories forever or their child forever. So we partnered with them. We have a fund within their organization called Ava's Kitchen that they allow us to use those funds however we feel necessary on the care side, not we don't do the research side. And so we send kids on and their families on breakaway adventures, like short trips that can happen very quickly. We, give checks during the holidays that they could use for all kinds of stuff. We have a big event, fantastic, where just 50 families could go and just have a fun day with other families going through the same thing. So we've done a lot of good with this money that we've raised. And, the one night really holds us through to the next year. So we end up thankfully raising, over 300,000 every year, depending on the year, but
with like 100,
with only 120 people. So,
but I think, for me, the takeaway here is like having some purpose, something bigger than yourself. And you could find that through faith. You could find that in a variety of ways. But I think for Ashley, it's been very inspirational for me, for you to find something that's bigger than yourself that you deeply align with. And you could go and just, we as a family can be behind something that's giving. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think that each family should have something, if they can, even if it's small, but there's something that maybe calls to them and that gives them some fulfillment from giving. And at least for us, it's been this, and it's been incredible what you've done.
Yeah. And I think it's important too, like our kids get to see that, especially Ava, she likes to say it's her event because her name's on it.
Yesterday she's like, "Oh, how's my event?"
Yeah,
I was like, Ava, like
I don't
your
see
mom's
working
doing
on
all
it.
the work on this. And Katrina, shout out to Katrina.
But she she takes a lot of pride in the event, and it's really special to her. And she speaks at the event, and she's at the event. She's on the stage with the chefs, and she's a really big part of it. And for our kids to be able to see us doing that and them also being involved with it and helping with it and being there, like, I think that's important to see for kids to grow up seeing giving back. And
watching all the other very generous friends of ours in the room and our family being gracious with nothing expected in return, but everybody's in alignment on like this shared vision of like helping kids fighting cancer in their families. Yeah, it's a big takeaway for our kids. I think in a future episode, I'd love to talk to you more about like Ava and like the fact that she texts people, like she's setting up her own babysitting now, and Caden getting paid by, for some garbage cans from neighbors, like that little hustle mentality and where is too much and where is not enough, and then how we instill the giving side, right? And the gratitude, I think probably gratitude is probably the biggest thing we try and share with them.
Yeah.
And back to your whole idea of perspective, I think all of this kind of aligns with how we're showing them perspective, right? Like when you have, because you're going to have people presenting up there, sharing their story, it just gives more perspective, I think.
Well, yeah. And everybody wants their kids to be grateful kids for what they have. And that's hard too, when you do have the means for certain things to take them on nice trips, to do all this stuff. But they also were lucky our kids could see the other side of it of, well, there's a lot of people and a lot of kids who are not as lucky, right? And who are, Ava's been around all these kids who are fighting cancer and who are sick, and to see what the other side of it is, and that these other people are going through hard times and this and that. So be grateful every day for the things you have, the things we get to do, because not everybody gets to do that. And to make sure they don't forget that is very important.
Dude, 100%. Well, I got to tell you, look,
Jason, if somebody wanted to learn more about Ava's Kitchen.
Oh, yeah. avaskitchen.org.
avaskitchen.org.
You could be added to the mailing list.
When Ash and I met, I go home, I tell my mom, we ended up marrying. We ended up getting married in 2009. And, I want to have more conversations like this. And I think the more that we do, the better we will get at like communicating how we actually like communicate at home, just on microphones. Because I just feel like if Ash and I could have a conversation about a subject that sparks a conversation between a couple that maybe helps them get through a tough time, like we're winning. Like that to me is the ultimate goal, is how do we share some of these lessons that we've learned? And like the CrossFit Games, they gave us a lot of blessings. Like I tell myself all the time that like I had to learn how to be positive. I had to learn how to understand what was in my control, because there's a lot of things that are outside my control. And same thing happened with Ava's diagnosis and COVID and the gym shutting down. But if you don't have certain life circumstances, maybe Ash and I could share those with you and help unlock and open up perspective, which I think is the goal.
Yeah.
So Ashley is not really on social media. Well, she is. What do you call someone like you?
I don't know.
What do you call?
I'm a weird. It's weird because I have all these followers, but only because of you, like back in your CrossFit days. So I have.
But you don't post anything.
I don't post that. I'm a terrible poster, and all the. I just. It's
what
not
do you
my
call
thing.
someone who's on social media pretty often, checking out what's going on in the scene, staying up on with the?
I think there's a lot of people who don't post, but who are on it all the time. I think that's more normal, actually.
All right.
But I don't think it's normal that I have that many followers for not doing anything.
And then maybe the next time we have Ashley on, we'll talk about your favorite shows. Because I know that last night you were watching some like desperate, like no, not desperate. What is it?
Bravo. Just
Ashley is the biggest Bravo fan as well. So, well, anyways, we will save it for another conversation. We have plenty more to dive into with the kids and with all kinds of stuff. But Ashley, I appreciate you. Make sure you go check her out on Instagram at Ashley Khalipa. And
you won't see much.
You won't see much. But on another note, what we always say on the show is that it's a really simple ask. If you got value from this episode, in particular with your spouse, in particular with whoever, send it to a friend. Send it to someone. Be like, dude, this part right here really resonated with me. And leave a podcast review and helps out the podcast tremendously for us to continue to share our message. Ashley, I love you. I appreciate you. Happy Valentine's Day to everybody out there, especially mine sitting right here.
Thanks.
That's all we got.